OMG, it's my younger self. Did young Derek know he'd be a New York City real estate developer one day? Not a clue, because I stumbled along a very untraditional path into real estate from a totally different career. I had a super boring desk job out of college as a financial controller, and after a couple years I quit to start my own tennis e-commerce site. I side hustled as a violin teacher and a management consultant for years while growing my retail business. And after 5 years of that, I took my savings and purchased my first property, and less than a year later, I sold my store, quit teaching violin, and started consulting a real estate developer. That turned into a full-time job for 5 years, after which I felt ready to start my own development company. Looking back at all that, in some ways I was really prepared, and in others I was completely oblivious, and it took me 13 years out of school to get started. If I got to hit the reset button, there's plenty I could have done to get started way sooner. So for those of you young noobs who know you're destined for real estate, here's how I would have done things differently and get there in about half the time. Okay, big disclaimer before I walk you through how I would do my developer career speed run. Everybody progresses through life on their own time, and you shouldn't stress yourself out so much if you're not doing better than your peers. The advice in this video is for if you're pretty sure at a young age that this is what you want to do and you don't want to waste any time doing it. Second disclaimer, if your family has money and real estate, chances are you're going to have a whole lot easier time getting started. Just saying. Alright, let's get started. I'm going to divide this video into two parts. The first half is character traits and personal development. The second is career strategy. So stick around for the whole video to get a complete picture of how to fast track yourself to becoming a developer. Alright, if I were to describe a super effective real estate developer, they would have the following character traits. Number 1, leadership and charisma. Real estate is a relationship business and involves a ton of negotiation. The savviest deal makers I know can command a room from the moment they walk in, and they have a natural magnetism. I am not one of those people. In fact, I'm extremely introverted. If you're extroverted, you're ahead of the game here, but if not, you can definitely practice being more outgoing, and you'll gain confidence the better you get at it. I worked way too much in my 20s, and I lived with my parents the whole time. So maybe if I moved out right after college, I would have improved faster because I would have had more of a social life. Number 2, financial literacy and discipline. Another quality I've seen in top deal makers is to have such a solid grasp of real estate finance that they can do back-of-the-envelope calculations in their head instantly. It comes with a lot of experience, but you should get started by taking finance courses as early as possible. On top of that, you need to have the financial discipline of a monk. Don't waste money on flashy things that you don't need. Invest it in appreciable assets and stocks till you're ready to buy a property, and build credit early and learn how to use debt to your advantage. Looking back on my own performance here, I did alright, but I would have tweaked some things. I minored in real estate finance in college, and I hate to perpetuate stereotypes, but yes, I was an Asian that was good at math. I probably took the financial discipline a bit too far because it stunted my social life. I remember having an average personal credit card bill of about $50 a month for most of my 20s, and I was afraid to use debt due to my financially conservative Asian upbringing, so I wish I had built my credit much earlier. Number 3 is creativity. Real estate development is basically non-stop problem solving with thousands of variables. You need to be creative to think about how to make things go your way, while also solving for your investors and future tenants. It requires being open-minded and shutting up your impulse to say no to possible solutions. A positive mindset that keeps asking what if will get you to solutions faster than a closed mind that dwells on how frustrating it is to have the problem in the first place. I definitely got better at this over time because I accumulated a wide variety of work experience in a number of industries. So when problems arose, I was able to think back to analogous situations I've seen in other industries pretty quickly and come up with unorthodox solutions. It's tough to accelerate experiential learning, but business schools use lots of case studies to develop this type of thinking. Number 4 is an entrepreneurial mindset with an appetite for risk. This ties back to number 1 because you need to be a type that forges a path not just for yourself, but for your whole team. Every single building you work on will be its own business, and you're basically starting a new business every time you close a deal. And each project has its own set of risks. In order to develop this trait, the biggest challenge is just to take that first step and go start something. You'll figure it out from there. For me, something snapped in my mindset in the middle of college when I created my own major, which was a hybrid of engineering and finance. I think all the years of following rules and trying to be a good student made me want to try making up my own rules for once. Out of school, I tried a desk job for a couple years, but once I took that first entrepreneurial step, the mindset stuck with me forever. And last tip before I talk about career strategy. Very few people will possess all of these traits, especially at a young age. I don't possess all of them now. That's why it's important to find 1 or 2 business partners to ensure that your company's leadership will collectively have as many of these traits as possible. It's also helpful to find a much more experienced partner with a track record and assets. It'll make fundraising a whole lot easier. My business partner Yuri has plenty of strengths and skills that I don't. There's no YD development without both Yuri and Derek. We're around the same age though, so we were both lacking in the track record department. Before I move on to the second half, if you like my advice so far, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button and help me grow the channel. It takes a lot of time and effort to put this content together, and every like tells the algorithm that this is worth showing to more people. And we're really trying to build a following in the real estate industry to get more people excited about PropTech. So share with your friends too. Okay, part 2, career strategy. You have to set up your education and experience so that you can develop all the character traits that I just discussed. There's infinite paths to get this done, but the most obvious path is to go to college and study finance with a concentration in real estate. I'd throw in a minor in sociology to balance out the numbers with the human aspects of development. Take some architecture and design courses too. During college, aim to do an internship every summer. This was one of my greatest shortcomings because I worked a bunch of cashier and data entry jobs instead of getting internships. Find a mentor and try to work for several different aspects in real estate, like construction, brokerage, or PropTech to get a good cross-section. If you don't need to worry about student loans or rent, you'll increase your chances at really valuable experience by asking to shadow people for free. Diversity of experience is most important while you're young so that you develop that creativity I talked about. Once you graduate, go work for a real estate developer, preferably in a second-tier city. The cost of living will be way cheaper, and real estate will also be much cheaper too, so you'll be able to save up faster and buy your first rental property as soon as you can. Although, let me bring up the disclaimer again. If your family has resources, you'll probably be in a position where you can buy your own house in college and rent it out to your roommates, thereby shaving off a couple years in this career speed run. Living in New York, I had to save up a lot more to buy my first property, but living at home, I was able to save pretty much everything I made. When you do buy your first property, manage it yourself for a while, or even try house hacking so you're around to do the fixes. You'll learn so much by doing it yourself, and your operating expenses will be really low too. As time goes on, you should be progressing your career working for a developer while also getting paid more, so you should be able to save up much quicker for your second property. Maybe try a fix and flip this time and engage a contractor. You should have plenty of contacts from your day job to handle this, and if your first flip goes well, you should be able to either accelerate your frequency of deals or scale up to a bigger deal each time. Once you hit a tipping point where your personal deals are making more than your day job working for a developer, you should seriously consider whether it makes sense to stick around. If you enjoy the safety of a paycheck and you feel like you have more to learn, then take your time. But if you feel like your time is better spent on your own deals and you've mastered a lot of the character traits required, then take that first step and go for it. And final lesson, never stop learning. That's why I suggest a book at the end of every video. So for today's womb, I recommend Range: Why Generalists Triumph in a Specialized World by David Epstein. Epstein makes a strong case to do the opposite of what I suggested in this video, to develop a variety of experience and be a generalist before you specialize in a field. I can't say I disagree with that because that's kind of what I did. But if your singular goal is to become a real estate developer as fast as possible, then my advice still stands. Stay curious, noobs, and stay tuned for part 2 of this video because I'll be sharing 3 things that I wish I knew before I became a real estate developer.